Welcome again to Unity of Tacoma. We are an online church with a physical presence right here on 74th Street in Tacoma, Washington. I'm so glad you're here, whether you're joining us online or here in our storefront. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing this morning. And what we're doing this morning is we're talking about forgiveness. We're in the middle of our series on Drive to Thrive. And when I had the idea of talking on forgiveness, I got so excited because forgiveness has been a huge part of my walk. I've explored it from every possible angle, I think. There's always more to learn, isn't there? I've read book after book after book after book on forgiveness, and these are just the ones I kept hard copies of. Most of my library's on Kindle now. But I thought, I think I've got 2 or 3 left on my shelf. I actually had quite a few. And if you look at the spines of these books, they're very thick, and you're like, whoa, that's an intense topic. There must be a lot to write. The truth is, the difference between these thicker volumes and my favorite, this very thin volume, is that the other books are full of stories. Storytelling is a fantastic way to get a message across. You're likely to resonate with someone who's like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I know about that ex-husband. I've had that ex-husband. I know about that boss. Wouldn't want to work for that boss again. We all have these situations, these commonalities, and storytelling is one way to really connect with one another. So I'm going to tell you my story. My big story about learning how to forgive was with my last marriage. That marriage lasted 15 years. And I was miserable for 14 of them. And it was all his fault, I guarantee you. It was all his fault. Towards the end, when I saw things unraveling, I started gathering evidence. Oh, I'm going to get this bank statement, these overdraft charges. Oh, I'm going to get this phone bill that shows how many times he called his girlfriend. I gathered all this evidence about that big. And I nurtured that anger. Ooh, that was a satisfying anger, let me tell you. It was satisfying to be the victim. I don't know why, but it just felt good. I think it has something to do with feeling like you're right. And so when I made the decision to forgive, the first thing I had to get over was wanting to be right. And that was a hard one. I tried talking myself out of it using my logic and, I guess I could take responsibility for this. I guess I could take responsibility for that. And I didn't feel much of a shift. It was all up here at that point in time. And then I got this amazing tool. Oh, I love spiritual tools. I love spiritual people who find something that really works and works fairly universally, right? There's always going to be someone who doesn't resonate with this, that, or the other thing, but I have yet to hear anyone who's truly used this tool say, it didn't work for me. It's called the oneness prayer. And my mentor, my teacher, recommended that for a very angry me, that I do it 70 times 7. 70 times a day for 7 days. And because I was so right, she suggested I do it on my knees. And I did. And after 7 days of saying this prayer 70 times on my aching knees, I felt a shift. I wasn't sure what exactly that shift was, but something broke free from bondage in that practice. But I wasn't there, and I didn't consult anyone. I didn't go back to my teacher. I just woke up the next Monday, got on my knees again, and said that prayer 70 times for another 7 days. And by the end of that 7 days, I was free. Imagine 15 years of resentment gone in 14 days of one spiritual practice. That's how powerful I found this practice. It didn't start out easy. In fact, it begins, there's only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. And knowing that I am one with this life, I know that I am one with each and every expression of that divine and sacred life, and that includes beloved. And I was supposed to put my ex-husband's name there. But I put every single cuss word you can imagine there for about the first 3 days. Because you got to start somewhere. I knew who I was talking about. God knew who I was talking about. It was ugly. It was not forgiving. No, it was not forgiving. It was not loving. But I didn't want it for him. And when I finally did get to the place where I could say that I am one with that divine and sacred life that is my ex-husband, I was free. Since I've done that practice, my goodness, 20 years ago now? Because I was single for 10 years and then, 20 years. I've discovered that even learning that he abused our daughter, which I did not know when I did that practice, discovering that he abused our daughter did not ruffle my feathers. Because I forgave him. Didn't change him. It didn't surprise me. Disappointed the heck out of me what he'd done to our sweet girl. But I didn't have to do the process again. It surprised me. It's like, I should be outraged. I should be outraged. And I wasn't. I sometimes consider, you know what? He is suffering. There is no way that man is not suffering with the memories of what he's done and with the loss of his relationship with his children. I don't need to do anything to punish him. It's often said that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. And I found that to be true. There's no point in me drinking poison because somebody else was, as we filter here, highly unskilled in his behavior choices. And so why, then, I wonder, do other drivers make me so gosh darn mad? I have not done my forgiveness work around other drivers. I'm very sorry to say this, but I actually, I'm not my highest self when I'm behind the wheel of a car. I'm working on it. We all have room for growth. I'm asking your forgiveness in seeing me as who I really am. I've said some very unkind things because I knew I couldn't be heard. I've thought some very unkind thoughts because I knew no one would know but me. And the truth is, I'm the only one who suffered. I was drinking poison. And I continue to do so. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Of all of these books, this little one is the one that served me best. No stories. No stories to connect with. Just truth. After truth, after truth. Have you ever read Paul Ferrini? He changed my life with his book, Unconditional Love. He did it again with this. Paul Ferrini, Ferrini. Paul Ferrini. Good Italian name, right? I was being told this morning that there's a place that's been quarantined in Italy, and they've dumped wine into the system so that wine is running from your taps. And I'm like, okay, when Italians rebel, this is how they do it. It's very Italian. Okay, so Paul Ferrini, fantastic writer, fantastic heart, just an amazing person with an amazing message. Here, I just want to give you a little piece of what he does. No stories. No stories. Just when I decided to talk about this topic, I went from ecstatic to disappointed because I realized I don't know how to talk about it. I can tell my story, but I don't really know how to talk about it. What is forgiveness? It's a practice, it's a process, it's an intention, it's what is forgiveness? It's all of those things. It's all of those things. And I can give you practices, but here Paul Farina gives you some axioms, right? 4 axioms for forgiveness. Forgiveness starts in one's own heart. May I be filled with loving kindness. May peace begin with me. Only when we have forgiven ourselves can we give forgiveness to or receive it from others. 2, forgiveness is not conditional, even though our practice of it often is. And 3, forgiveness is an ongoing process. It continues in response to every judgment we make about ourselves and others. Every gesture of forgiveness is sufficient. Oh, if you remember nothing, remember that. Every gesture of forgiveness is sufficient. It was okay after 7 days. That was enough. That's where I was. After 7 days, I was able to use his name. And that was enough for me at that time. Whatever we are able to do now is enough. This understanding enables us to practice forgiveness with forgiveness. So it begins within. I don't have these memorized. So it begins within. We start with ourselves. I thought I was forgiving my ex-husband, but really I was forgiving myself. I was forgiving myself for staying. I was forgiving myself for being used. I was forgiving myself for all of the choices that I made that brought 3 children into a marital relationship that was never working, not even in the beginning. I was forgiving myself for choosing divorce, for dragging those 3 little kids through that. I was forgiving myself for being stupid when I was 19. I still judged my behavior and my choices from when I was 19. I was able to forgive myself there. I guess now I just need to forgive myself for being a merely adequate driver. So number 2, forgiveness is not conditional, even though our practice of it often is. This kind of relates to the 4th axiom, right? Just wait where you are right now is enough. Okay? So I was able to forgive him so far through 1 week of that spiritual practice. That was okay. It was better than the day before, and better than the day before that, and better than the day before that. But with another 7 days of spiritual practice, I was able to release it completely. And that's been great too. Sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I wish I were so mad that I had the energy to put all of my focus into prosecuting him. But that's not my choice. Not anymore. And then forgiveness is an ongoing process. It continues in response to every judgment we make about ourselves and others. Let's pause there for a moment. Because I'll tell you, at some point, I went from not forgiving to forgiving, and it happened like that. But there was a process and a practice that came along with it. So it's a process. Be gentle with yourself. If you've ever been unhappy with a decision that I've made, be gentle with me. Forgive me. I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. And I accept if you're unhappy with me. Don't like it, but I accept it. Because that's part of my process. That's part of my process. Christine S. and I have been very good friends for a really long time, but there was a time when there was some friction. And interestingly enough, we both handled it the same way. She dealt with her stuff, and I went home and dealt with my stuff. She grew, I grew. We came together, made new agreements for our friendship, and bam. Like being new friends. I value that. I value someone who will come to me and tell me the truth without that judgment. Pre-forgiving all of my missteps. my unkind words, my unskilled actions. Forgiving me for just being me. I have my strengths. I'm very, very confident about my strengths. But one of the problems with being self-reflective in the manner that I am is that I'm also very aware of my weaknesses. I would find it highly unlikely that you could tell me, Raylene, do you realize that you XYZ? And I wouldn't say, oh yeah, that sounds like me. That sounds like me. I know who I am. I know that I'm not perfect, which really sucks because I'm a perfectionist. And I forgive myself for not being perfect all the time. All the time. I know that I really envy the way Christine S. expresses spiritual principle in secular life. I really envy that. That has not been a strength of mine, but you know what? We've been friends long enough that I'm starting to pull it off. And I forgive myself when I'm not able to do it, as well as Christine S. And then I forgive myself for comparing myself to her. Because that's how forgiveness works. I think the reason why I didn't get all hot and bothered when I found out about the abuse was because my process of forgiveness was that complete in that area. And I tell you this, the practice of forgiving, doing that process that I just can't describe. I don't know how it happens. It's magic. But doing that process is like practicing anything, shooting baskets, walking, singing. You just get better each time you try. You can't help but get better each time you put your mind and your heart into the practice of forgiveness. It's really hard to hold a grudge against someone when you recognize your oneness with them. And that is why the oneness prayer is so incredibly powerful. Because you have to say, the reason why I'm upset is because there's an aspect of myself that I have yet to love. All of our emotions, all of our reactions are about our relationship with ourself. That's big. If you really embrace that, that is big. Are you happy? It's because of your relationship with yourself. Are you mad? That's because of your relationship with yourself. And it's hard sometimes to truly integrate that understanding with this knowing, and then our actions. But it starts within. It's unconditional. It's a process. Right? It's the last one. Oh, this is juicy stuff. Oh, every gesture of forgiveness is sufficient. I don't think I'm at the point where I'm forgiving other drivers. Mostly I'm like, oh, okay, I promised myself I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to be a mean girl. I'm a mean girl. I don't know how to explain this to y'all who haven't known me for a very long time. I am such a mean girl. You want to know, after the divorce, the first thing that I did to start stepping into my power after forgiving myself for being a doormat for so gosh darn long was to become snarky. Oh, I was good at it. I was the queen of zing. Absolutely nothing. Do we need to separate you two? That's okay. Thank you, Linda. I haven't changed. No, this is, well, Carlton sees me when I'm unfiltered. God bless him. I love that man so much. A fantastic trustee on our board, and no one's yes man drives me nuts. He gives pushback. He's smart, and he's wise, and he's kind, and I love that. He's an excellent leader for us here. And he is snarky, yes, indeed. But I had to claim my power, and so that's how I began. I began by becoming a mean girl because I was unskilled at being loving. I remember the first time I stepped into my power. It wasn't stark. It was so unskilled. I was at this very rugged competition sport known as finding a seat at the elementary school choir. All my kids were going to be singing in the choir. And for some unknown reason, we were all flat on the floor like this, with kids this high performing at the same level where we were, and really only the first row was going to be able to see anything. So I got there early, right? I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had this privilege of being able to be at the school and, kind of know all the secrets. And even though I didn't have money to buy one of those first row chairs at the school auction, yes, for, $200 you could have a front row seat at every concert, I would get in the second row. It was so competitive that even being an hour and a half early, I was in the third row. And some very unhappy, diminutive mom did not like that she was stuck behind me. And she kept tapping me on the shoulder. I can't see. I said, I'm sorry. She tapped me on the shoulder a little bit better. She goes, I can't see. You're too tall. I'm sorry. The third time she did it, I said, well, then maybe you ought to go stand against the wall with some of the other parents. Not loving. But I claimed my power. I claimed my power that day. And then I went to my therapist 2 days later and cried and said, I was mean to someone. I was terrible. It was awful. That was about the same time the internet was coming out, and chat rooms. Remember chat rooms back in the day? Oh, I loved chat rooms. I loved the anonymity. I loved the witty banter and the zing and the meanness. And I really got into it, and it was actually a good practice for developing standing into my power, but I wasn't happy yet. I wasn't happy being a mean girl. My therapist helped me understand what I was really doing about claiming my power, but she also helped me be available to do that lovingly. And that included forgiving. Boy, I was so concerned this was going to be short. We're actually going to go long. Here's the magical prayer. Would you mind handing it out? I'm going to keep one for myself. It's been a long time. Just take a moment. Who came up? What situation? It doesn't have to be someone you know. It could be a political entity. Don't tell us. You could be mad at an institution. You could be mad at the economy. Could be a relative. Could be a friend. But this is powerful. And so I just invite you to take that person, that idea, that entity into your heart. Would you just give us a little bit of tinkly music? I don't want Bill and them all to feel left out. We'll wait till Bree comes back. We have just enough. Look at that. I don't know. It's a God thing. Holding that person in your heart, taking a deep breath, coming center. Will you say with me, there is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with the life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with each and every expression of that divine and sacred life, which includes beloved. No, you have to say the name. If you all whisper it, say it in your heart. Because I know that the one life of God cannot be against itself, I therefore know that I cannot be against, nor can be against me. Together, in the perfect wholeness of the one life that is God, that person and I can only be for a fuller and greater expression of our own true nature, which is love. And out of the self-giving nature of that love, there can only be harmonious interaction, perfect peace, and freedom for us both. I give thanks for the presence of that person in my life, for by this presence I have been shown a part of myself that I have yet to love. a part of myself which I now invite into the wholeness of my being, which is Christ. And it is in this awareness of oneness that I give thanks to the glory of God for the healing power and presence of love in my life. I am grateful. God is gracious.